Hey class, I just wanted to give you a little bit of info about the upcoming map and poster project. I'll be posting more info on the poster later on. So anyway, this is a good example of a map that meets all the criteria. So again, be sure to add a name too. A lot of people fail to add this. And I also think in the iConnect, she may say you don't need to. Another thing that you need to keep in mind too is that you need to choose the same city for both the map and the poster. And the idea here is to create a very similar look and feel. Um, so going to the next one here, you can see how this is the beginning of the poster, the rough draft. How it does have a similar look and feel to this. And then here's the final version here. Let me see if I can fit it on here better. And again, you can really see how the font is the same, the color is the same. More could have been done with the text here, but again, this is something just to keep while you're researching for your map and final project. Again, the look and feel is very similar with these. So this is kind of the idea here, and you'll really be able to create a stronger portfolio piece. So again, and it's also easier because once you start to think about the font you want to use, the colors and so on, then it'll really help guide you. And again, think of the look and feel for whatever city you choose. So again, this is just the info under the course project right here. So you're going to need 3 restaurants, 4 attractions, and 2 shopping locations, and plus the hotel. Read this carefully, please. 10 icons that are created by you using the pen tool and shape tools only. You cannot import bitmaps and use them. You can import some and trace them, but there's no use of any kind of symbols in Illustrator or any imported vectors, and no use of live paint or image trace and all that stuff. So make sure to create closed paths with the pen tool. So just be sure to just really observe this, because I see a lot of students not doing this, and you need to really start to try to make curves with the pen tool. And most of you are doing that, but when I see some of you, I'm trying to use lines and just trying to avoid using the Bezier curves. It's not the end of the world, but Illustrator really is about the pen tool, and you really can't put it on your resume that Illustrator if you can't create curves with the pen tool. Okay, so anyway, and this is going to give you good practice. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be a masterpiece. You can also, edit these later on after the class is over for your portfolio. So again, yeah, just a few things to keep in mind. It's really easy to see if graphic styles, patterns, symbols are used. So just don't use them. Draw your own. Okay, so I'll show you some more examples. Okay, with this one, I just want to point out this is a pretty good area to choose. Don't choose the whole city or too much of an area. It just gets too complicated. What really works with this one is she's really unified the icons by adding this little circle and pointer. Please don't copy it, but you can use this as an idea. There's a lot of different ways you can approach this. Her legend is really well aligned. You can just see how it's aligned here. Notice just some finishing touches with the rounded corners and so on. The text is placed in the negative space of the water here. This is Chicago, obviously. So again, just some things to keep in mind. Very nicely placed city names. She could have made the city names just a little bit bigger because she's got the negative space to do it, okay? So let's just continue here and I'll show you some more examples. Okay, this is the rough draft, but again, you can resubmit these before week 8, before week 7. So I do allow for revisions on this. It takes a lot of time to grade it, but I really want you guys to create a strong portfolio piece. Okay, so what's working in this is that the overall layout is really nice. There's just too much going on in the map. The icons don't stand out enough, and this is this part of what's called a visual hierarchy. The most important things need to stand out the most. So Helena, it's also crammed up in the top here. I would get rid of the apostrophe. I would get rid of the underline. I would make Helena bigger than Montana. Again, visual hierarchy. You can see how this is perfect. Chicago stands out the most, then Illinois. Even Illinois could be smaller. So just some things to keep in mind. That's a real important graphic design concept is visual hierarchy. This is too big. There's a few things that are problems with this, but again, she corrected a lot of this for the final week. But overall, this is a really good attempt for week 6. My suggestions were to not use, to use a sans serif font. It looks a lot cleaner. Make the legend a little bit bigger. It's very crammed down here, and just eliminate some of the details. Like this park doesn't need to be so huge. So again, but once you have all this in Illustrator, it's easy to size it, right? Especially if you use folders correctly. Another issue with this is that it looks like an island. When people glance at something, they think of blue as water. So I probably would change the blue. So, and again, but all of her icons, she really did a good job. And you can see she drew them all. You know, she spent a lot of time drawing each one of them. Yeah, so overall it's a nice job. It just needs, it needs some work. It's definitely a rough draft. Now this is a really nice map here. Really nice amount of detail. It's a little bit too much detail, but what is really a problem with this map is some of the color. Red on blue does not work. It's just really hard on the eyes. And again, she has a lot of negative space. You can't read these. Even when you make it a lot bigger, it's hard to read the text. So you want this text to stand out a little bit more. But other than that, this could be a little bit bigger. Her icons look great, and the way that she organized them looks really good. I probably would have aligned them a little bit differently. They're center aligned. I probably would have aligned them to the left. But again, note how she's creating consistency with using all just the white icons. And again, I can make it bigger, but it's still just really hard to see this text. And some of these other color combinations aren't legible, like this kind of a beige color on this green is not readable. Again, needs contrast. Light text on dark is legible. This is even pushing the legibility. White on this dark red is legible. Light on light isn't. Dark on dark isn't. Let's move on here. Now this one came out really good. Again, there's some issues with visual hierarchy. Again, I probably would have, my suggestion were to use a sans serif font. Again, the font choice is not that great. I would have made Alameda bigger and again, California smaller, so it stands out more. But overall, her map looks really good. The text is readable, the icons look great, and it's a really good size. Notice how it's not a huge area. It's kind of like a little tour map of just a downtown area, and you don't need to show all the streets. It'll take you forever to do it, and it's just not necessary for what this assignment is about. Again, notice all the little icons. She did a great job. A lot of students bring images in and trace them. That's perfectly fine. Sometimes it's good to do these in separate Illustrator files and just copy paste them into your document. That's kind of my workflow. Notice these little diamonds. So again, this is a really successful piece. This is way too big down here. Again, visual hierarchy. So, but pretty much this is almost a final piece. This one too came out really good. Again, I kind of like the font, the text, but I think I would have done it a little bit differently. But her icons, she worked really hard on drawing all these out. And again, this is a really good area of downtown Seattle to focus on. I would have not used bold for this text. I would have probably not used all caps. And there's some little modification. You can see she struggled with drawing this freeway sign, but that's okay too. Overall, the legend looks pretty good. I would have worked with the text a little bit more, and I think she did. I don't think this is the final draft, but overall, this is a really pretty successful piece. Some of the alignment in the streets could be worked on a little bit, and the reason I say that is that the design field is so detail oriented and nitpicky. You don't want little things to be off like that. It kind of sticks out like a sore thumb, but I love her drawings are really unique. I don't think she even traced them, so it came out really great. You know, a couple little things, you know, the 99 should be upright, you know, so on and so forth. Now this one is a really successful piece too. Again, notice how she did her legend. I would have moved it over. It's got a little bit too much negative space through here, so I probably would have zoomed in on this part and I probably would have cropped it like this much off here and over here. So I would have, you know, just kind of zoomed in a little bit, and I would have moved the legend over. And again, the name, she needs a much more stylized font for Astoria. This needs to be the biggest again. I would have moved the whole thing down a little bit so there would be negative space for the name. Astoria needs to be a lot bigger, and then Oregon smaller. And again, the legend type is too big in relation to the city type. But overall, really nice. Now notice how simple it is. Only a couple colors, right? And what's unifying this is the simple colors and all these really cool black icons. So again, don't copy any of these, but get some ideas. Now this one's good too. Now this one, there's some issues with, there's no city name for one thing. The legend could be aligned a little bit. The icons, there's a lot of negative space here, so these icons could be a lot bigger. This is a little bit large, but I think that, you know, I would probably move the whole thing over a little bit so I could put the city name someplace in here. But overall, this is a pretty nice job, and they, you know, the icons do need to be bigger, but if you do organize your Illustrator layers, it's really easy to make these bigger. You cannot read the city names at all, so that's another thing that I would really, you know, they really need to work on. So anyway, but the color and the icons, and overall, it's a really successful piece. And her final was you know, really worked really well. Here's another really a really pretty good one. Again, they spent forever drawing all these streets out. It's not necessary. I would have zoomed in a lot closer, like maybe, you know, maybe take a quarter out of this side and lower, but all of her icons look great. And notice how that she unified them by creating this little rounded square rectangle over it. Again, there's no city name, so that got dinged. This should say legend. This is not necessary. So again, this is a rough draft, but it's a really successful rough draft. And again, you know, you don't need to name all the streets. She didn't even need to draw a lot of this stuff. But again, just simplify. It'll make your life a lot easier. Okay. Here's another one with kind of the same comments as the last one. There's no city name. It's too big of an area. But overall, the layout looks really great. I would just really zoom in. You can't see any of these icons. And, you know, so again, a lot of issues, but a really good start. It looks like they just took the icon off the mall. So again, make sure these are legible and make sure they're original. You know, there just needs to be more unity in this map. And again, you know, city name and stronger visual hierarchy. But overall, a pretty good attempt for a rough draft. Okay, now I wanted to show you this one because it's a good start, but there's a lot of problems with it. The first thing is you can't read this Columbus, Ohio at all. Don't use too many styles on your text. And again, Columbus needs to be big and really stand out, and Ohio needs to be smaller. I'd get rid of the underline. It needs to be over negative space so it's readable. If you put text over imagery, you can't read it. So, and again, so what really came out good with this is all these icons look great. This needs work too. You can't read, you know, you can't read this text over this transparency, seeing the map through. It's a great idea and everything, but again, just not legible. So this is almost too much too, but the area is okay, but they didn't need to add every single street here. It's just not necessary to give the idea of what's going on. You want enough so there's not a bunch of negative space. Some issues with the text. Now, if you want the text to show up, just make the street a little bit bigger so it doesn't, it doesn't overlap and look sloppy. So that's just, and same here, this Fred Taylor, it's just over the top. But again, simplify. Now this is a really great start, but this person kind of went a little bit too far with this text styles. I like the font, but it doesn't work for these streets. You can't read it, and it's just in terms of look and feel, it's just kind of not working. You can't see this red text over the blue. And again, you probably don't want to make a freeway looking blue like a river. It's just people read blue as river. Um, but overall, all the icons look great. They need to be bigger. So a lot needs to just be simplified. So if they simplify the text here, and again, you don't want the overlap of these labels. You don't need the labels because that's what your legend's for, right? You cannot see text over imagery. So something like this is not legible. Okay, so again, but overall the color and the layout and the amount of area he chose to illustrate is perfect. So anyway, overall it looks good. I think that's my last one. So anyway, let me know if you have any questions. Again, just look at the requirements. Please don't, use imported images or don't use symbols or any of that kind of stuff. Because again, if I have to ask you to resubmit it, there's a point deduction, and sometimes I just don't have time to grade a lot of redos. We aren't required to, and most instructors don't because it takes so much time. Okay, so anyway, I hope that this helps, and I look forward to seeing your maps.